screen so that I will
And good morning, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chentex Multimedia presentation for 13th October 2020. Wonderful to have your company and making news today. Victoria recorded 15 new COVID-19 cases on Monday, but no deaths. It's now impossible for Melbourne to record a 14-day average under 5 by October 19, as more than 584,000 Victorian students return to classroom. Nazareth College in Melbourne's southeast has closed after a student positive tested. And Victoria's top public servant Chris Ells has resigned after his phone records were requested by the state quarantine inquiry. New South Wales recorded one new local case in the latest 24-hour reporting period. The state recorded 6 cases in total, 5 of which were detected with overseas travellers in the hotel quarantine. Queensland has recorded 0 new cases of COVID-19 overnight, maintaining the active cases in the state to 4. A total of 1,987 tests were completed in the past 24 hours. New CSIRO research shows that COVID-19 can last up to 28 days on surfaces like mobile phones, ATM screens, much longer than that was previously thought. And Deaf Franklinton under investigation over fundraising activities involving restricted donors. That and much more in today's news. But first, let's take a very quick look at the weather for today with Dilraj Diller.
Good morning everyone. Weather forecast for the rest of today is maximum 28 degree. Brisbane area is partly cloudy with 10% chances of rain. Light winds becoming easterly 20 to 30 km per hour in the middle of the day, then becoming light in the evening. Fire danger is high. Sun protection is recommended till 3 past 10 and UV index is predicted to reach 9, that is very high. Till tomorrow, stay safe and have a good day.
Thank you very much, Dilraj. Well, welcome to Chentex Multimedia Live blog for Tuesday, October the 13th. New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian says she will not resign following revelations that her personal relationship with a disgraced former MP and her colleagues coming out to back her. Victoria's rolling average has climbed back into the double figures with 12 new cases but only 1 death announced. A new coronavirus alert has been issued for venues in Sydney's southwest, with 2 infections in doctors sparking another warning. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is holding a rally in Florida as he returns to campaigning following his COVID-19 diagnosis. He's a goer, that man, I should say. Well, follow Chentex Multimedia throughout the day for key breaking news and developments, coronavirus updates and live streams from Australia and around the world. And the key points which you discussed today: Victoria records 12 new cases, 1 death as rolling average climbs. And Gladys Berejiklian's team really in support of the leader after ICAC grilling. And as she has mentioned that her personal life should not conflict, but she says her personal life is a mess, but she's trying to do the best that she can. Trump returns to the road after COVID-19 diagnosis, a venue alert after Sydney's doctors contract COVID-19. And now, here's the main stories for today. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to the show. And as I mentioned before, that we do come under a lot of fire and a lot of scrutiny as well. There's many claims that are being made against us. But anyway, we'll keep going. So here's the news for today.
This morning facing a parliamentary vote of no confidence in her government. It follows her bombshell appearance yesterday before the state's corruption watchdog, where she admitted having a close personal relationship with a disgraced former MP. The Premier says she has stuffed up in her personal life but has done nothing wrong. Victoria's opposition coalition says it will move a parliamentary motion of no confidence in Premier Daniel Andrews following new revelations about the state's bungled hotel quarantine program. The Premier's top bureaucrat, Chris Eccles, resigned yesterday after he changed his evidence to an inquiry into the troubled scheme. The program has already cost the Health Minister her job, and questions remain about who made the call to use private security guards in quarantine hotels, a decision blamed for the state's deadly second wave of coronavirus. Cardinal George Pell has met Pope Francis at the Vatican for the first time since his child sex abuse convictions were quashed in April. Cardinal Pell returned to Rome nearly a fortnight ago after a nearly 3-year absence. The video footage has been released of the devastation caused by Rio Tinto to ancient rock shelters in WA's Pilbara region. The mining giant blew up the Jukan Gorge caves in May so they could mine the area for iron ore. Traditional owners have fronted a federal inquiry into the destruction for the first time.
So there are the news headlines for today, and as we have seen that a lot of our leaders are in trouble or in deep waters at this point in time, starting right from Victoria, where a vote of no confidence is being moved, and of course then coming to New South Wales, where Premier Gladys Berejiklian has come under fire for her personal life and her relationship with the former disgraced MP. And coming to Queensland, Deb Franklinton now she maintains that they reported the matter themselves to the crime and corruption ones, just to clarify that their fundraising or the event that took place was all above board, so that it would not blow up in the face. But as it did, of course, media is there and everyone else is jumping on board and taking that to and then we also look at our Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk and Jackie Trade, and of course looking at who is going to be on that front bench and who is not going to be on that. Interesting times, really interesting times. So the next footage here comes with the courtesy of Channel 9.
On the Queensland election, in a major development, opposition leader Deb Franklinton has been referred to the election watchdog. Nine's Reese D'Alessandro is in Brisbane with the details. And Reese, what's this all about?
Oh, Ali, it's going to be a pretty interesting day on the election trail this morning. Deb Franklinton referred to the election watchdog by her own party, the LNP, over fears Queensland laws around political donations may have been broken. These concerns stemming around a number of dinners whereby after political donations had been received by the LNP, Ms Franklinton insisting these events, invite-only events, were not fundraisers and that the donations came afterward. Nonetheless, I've spoken to LNP sources this morning who say the reason they're referring this matter to the election watchdog is to make sure they didn't do anything wrong. They don't want to be caught doing anything wrong, so they're getting that independent advice. Meanwhile, the Premier has come under fire this morning for not having control of her own cabinet. Union bosses are saying that they have more say, I guess you could say. The factions in the Labor Party will determine who sits in cabinet. The Premier yesterday categorically ruling out the return of former Deputy Premier Jackie Trad to cabinet. Jackie Trad saying on her own Facebook page she won't be making a return to cabinet, but union bosses this morning saying the Labor Party has its own processes and that they should be followed. So, Ali, a very interesting day ahead on the campaign trail.
Gee whiz, they've both got big problems. What's happening in state politics? Thank you, Reese.
And there we are, lots of problems there, and definitely very, very interesting times. And it will be very interesting to see what transpires out of all these actions that are taking place. Well, of course, we know with the election in the air, any could happen. And of course, all the voters are very wary of what's happening. First, they look at Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk and the way she's controlled the cases with only 4 active cases remaining in Queensland. But that's one part. The economy is another part. The government's debt is another part as well. So there's so many things that needs to be considered. And of course, there's so many people who are vying for the positions, and it doesn't help when there's a conflict within the party itself, when the confidence level amongst all the team members is not high. So, all these things will take a toll. And voters, what they actually do on the day, a lot of, many voters have already made their mind whom they're going with. But many times, little incidents or something like that will change or sway the votes to go. Well, right now, let's go and look at the main stories for today. Number 1 is New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian, as she says she did stuff up.
There is nothing I did which did not put the people of New South Wales first. People may have tried to influence me, people may have tried to get around proper process, but they failed. They failed to get to me around proper process, and that is what is important. I hold the integrity of this government to the highest standard, and what is comforting in what I regard as a personal nightmare, and I will call it a personal nightmare, you cannot appreciate for someone who's very private, for someone who is very by the book, for someone who put her trust in someone she thought she could trust. I'd known him for 15 years. I can't tell you what it's done to me personally. It's been devastating, and I've had to bear this on top of everything else. But I want everybody to know that notwithstanding the personal pressures I was under, the personal challenges that I've had, that at every opportunity I've worked hard, my guts out for the people of this state, because I've always put the people first. Public service is a sacrifice, and whether it's my deputy who has a number of children, and I know what he sacrifices to do his job. And similarly, the health minister, I know what he's sacrificed to do his job, and public service is a sacrifice. And I just want the public to know that never ever have I done anything but to completely serve the public. Never ever have I done anything but what is the highest standard of integrity. And where I have failed is in my personal life, and I accept that. I take full responsibility for that. In fact, this was a relationship I did not share with anybody, not my family, not my closest friends. It was not a relationship that I regarded of sufficient status, but yet I will say that I am. Well, I don't want to take away the responsibility for my actions and say I'm human, but I am. I'm human, and I stuffed up in my personal life. And for someone who's extremely private and extremely cautious and very conservative in the way she leads her life, it's been very difficult to have that out on full display.
And difficult, yes, it will be, because leading that kind of role, it is very hard. It is not you always in the public's eye, and then that fine balancing act of putting your life in front and the public life, and balancing the two is many times very, very hard. But right now, what did she say about her relationship with Daryl Maguire?
State your full name, please.
Gladys Berejiklian.
You are the Premier of the State of New South Wales.
Proudly so.
As Premier, you are closely familiar with the New South Wales Ministerial Code of Conduct, is that right?
I am.
Ms Berejiklian, have you ever been in a close personal relationship with Mr Maguire?
Yeah, I would like to say at the outset that Mr Maguire was a colleague of 15 years. He was someone that I trusted. He was a trusted colleague.
Ms Berejiklian, you should answer the question.
I am answering the question.
You should answer it directly.
Certainly, and
I'll give you an opportunity.
Yes or no answers.
Yeah, sure, and that developed into a close personal relationship. Yeah.
Are you still in a close personal relationship with Mr Maguire?
What I regard as a personal nightmare. If I had done something wrong, I would be the first one to consider my position, but I haven't. Had I known then what I know now, of course I would have had nothing to do with him, but I did not know the extent of what he was alleged to have done.
Alexandra Smith is the state political editor for the Sydney Morning Herald. Alexandra, the public...
Well, there we go. So when you look at someone's private life versus her professional life, as long as, the state and her duty has been delivered, well, time will tell. Well, we'll see how we go. Well, right now we're going to Victoria, where Victoria's top public servant, Chris Ells, has resigned. Let's take a quick look at that story.
It's the question at the heart of Victoria's second deadly wave of coronavirus. Who made the decision to use private security instead of police or defence troops? Today, the inquiry probing that fateful move claimed the scalp of the Premier's right-hand man.
The Secretary of the Department of Premier and Cabinet has today tendered his resignation from that position, effective immediately.
I think I probably...
Only 3 weeks ago, Chris Eccles was grilled at the inquiry about how the decision was reached.
Shouldn't we be able to say who made it?
It's a really interesting and important question.
More than 30 private security guards ended up contracting COVID-19 before the virus spread. But despite 62 witnesses giving evidence, including the Premier, ministers, senior bureaucrats and emergency services chiefs, not a single person has admitted to knowing the answer.
I do not know who made that decision.
Do you know who it was?
No, I don't. That's the nature of the decision I made. That's why I set up this board of inquiry.
Because we really should know, shouldn't we?
Yes, it's one of a number of very important questions, yes.
It's been established the decision was made sometime on the afternoon of March 27th, the day hotel quarantine was announced. The inquiry heard National Cabinet finished around 1 p.m. At 1:16, former Police Commissioner Graham Ashton texted Victoria's top public servant Chris Eccles to ask what role police would play. Graham Ashton told the inquiry he couldn't remember if Chris Eccles or some other person then phoned him, because 6 minutes later he texted his Australian Federal Police counterpart with this information.
Mate, my advice is that ADF will do passenger transfer and private security will be used. That's the deal set up by our DPC.
Until today, what happened in those missing 6 minutes has remained a mystery, with Graham Ashton telling the inquiry neither he nor Victoria Police could access his incoming call records.
And there was a 6-minute period in which I received information that, which is along the lines that I have outlined in that text. So I don't know for sure where I got that information from.
Interesting there as well, and looking at that inquiry and who made that final decision. Well, I mean, of course, many people at many times use security guards. So and of course, if the security guards had been diligent, this situation may not have arisen, and no one would have ever thought, okay, why did you hire the security guards? Because the things have gone wrong with the security guards, that this inquiry is taking place. And there are many decisions that high-level officials make under this kind of pressure when, they have to just make the decision as they go. And of course, not having the comfort of having long lengthy time to sit down, mull over every possible scenario and then make a decision. So, it says IDF will transport the passengers from the airport to the hotel. Hotel will have security guards to look after. Well. So that's how the decision was probably made. And of course, moving on, let's go to Western Australia right now, where the Vigor Dream, of course, is causing another problem. So as we know, many of these cases have been introduced from overseas, people coming in from overseas, be it via the plane or the ships. So let's take a look at this news coming out of Western Australia.
Bulk ore carrier Vigor Dream arrived in Port Hedland from Manila with 20 crew on board. On Saturday, one of the crew members became symptomatic and was found to have an elevated temperature, but was, however, not unwell. That crew member underwent a Gen X test which returned a positive result. A PCR test was then sent to Perth for confirmation of the result yesterday. While this was happening, the crew member was transferred from the vessel to Headland Hospital in a COVID-safe isolation ward. The rest of the crew were tested. Their tests were sent to Perth last night for analysis by PathWest. We have now received the results of the tests this morning. What I can confirm is that the first crew member has tested positive to PCR. He remains in isolation in Headland Hospital and will be transferred to a chic hotel to serve out the remainder of his quarantine.
So, the steps are being taken, but once again, the question or the fact still remains that, people coming in from overseas and they have said that the crew being recruited from Manila will probably be suspended for a little while they look for crew from other places and other locations, and who knows where and how they'll find them and how safe they would be. Well, there's been lots of talks after the post-budget, and many cases have come forward where people have said that women have not received a fair go under this budget. And of course that the area of travel and tourism has been suffering a lot, and what has been done in that. So a new domestic campaign has been launched by Tourism Australia. Let's go to that news.
1 in 13 people employed, 1 in 13 Australians employed, as you say, in the industry, yet it actually received very little attention in the federal budget, very little targeted attention outside of the JobKeeper program. A number of economists had suggested things such as vouchers, like Tasmania did. Why didn't you do that to really give this a real boost?
Well, some of the states and territories have stepped up with vouchers. What we've done is provide many billions of dollars of support to keep these businesses afloat through JobKeeper, through small business payments of up to $100,000, now through the loss carryback provisions that are allowing previously profitable businesses to be able to deduct this year's losses against previous year's profits.
Yeah, but that's not going to get people, sorry Senator, that's not going to get people actually going to holiday destinations.
Well, this is about making sure, firstly, that we keep these businesses afloat, keep their employees in place, and then we've given Tourism Australia a record budget of more than $230 million over the next year that they will be investing, just as we are right now, to get people moving and travelling across the country.
So that's the incentives that's been talked about, and people say that area which really needs attention has not been given the due attention that was required for that. Well, right now let's go to the news of the Duke and George, and the traditional owners have right now released a rare video of the blast aftermath. If you look at so the PPK provided the footage to a parliamentary hearing that had a gag clause prevented them from speaking out before the demolition. So, they could not speak out before, but they have now released this video.
Months after Rio destroyed the Jukan caves, the damage has finally been made public.
This is one of the caves that you can see visually. This is the Jukan 1 cave. Further to the left is the Jukan 2 cave. It's completely covered by the gravels in that after the detonations. Burial sites, everything.
The vision is courtesy of Rio and was released to a parliamentary inquiry where PKKP representatives made rare public criticisms of the miner, revealing in the days before the blast, Rio's lawyers reminded them not to speak out or they'd breach a gag clause.
I would never ever trust Rio again.
The hearing also heard Rio kept loading explosives even after the PKKP people had protested about the imminent destruction of the caves.
Don't let this happen. Never let this happen. Don't trust the people you put the trust to.
The parliamentary hearing was held via teleconference because of the McGowan government's strict border control measures, which have so far stopped the interstate members of the parliamentary committee entering WA.
The Police Commissioner manages the exemption process, but I just say to everyone, we have rules
that apply to everyone about going and visiting remote Aboriginal communities. And that's there to protect Aboriginal people.
In a statement, Rio Tinto said it reiterates that what happened at Juukan Gorge was wrong. The committee's chairman, Warren Ench, says he can't hand down the inquiry's findings without visiting the Pilbara. Eliza Borello, ABC News.
So there we go. We talk about companies and mining and what's done. So, there are many times people who are protesting against companies, but I think the protest should be against the work itself rather than naming a company. So, unless it is related to a incident. So there you are, up to date on Chantex Multimedia Network. Well, right now, New South Wales is going through a drought. And the latest drought affecting New South Wales farmers has been long and punishing. A little of the state is spread in the dry conditions, but it now looks like that the drought may have broken. But what we look at is that the conditions that are coming, and as we know that this year, moving a few months down the track, we will have a lot of rain coming in.
I see life. Once you do get that rain, everything just shoots up from underneath you. It's amazing.
Spring has well and truly sprung at Carl Station. It's a welcome change for Brendan Cullen after 4 tough years of drought.
Last year we had a bit over 4 inches or 100 mil. This year we're well over the 100 mil mark now. In the last month and a half, we've had 60 mil. I think it's the elixir of life. I mean, ultimately, if you're in the rural industry, your life is revolved around rain.
When 7:30 first met Brendan in 2018, Carl Station was bone dry with clouds of choking dust. The transformation is astounding.
We're well and truly on our way for the drought to be over.
This time last year, 99% of New South Wales was drought affected or in drought. Now that's down to just over 20%. 60% of the state is completely drought-free, with the rest classed as recovering.
So Mother Nature has her own ways, and many times what we do, can not, of course we can help the environment, but there's many things which are beyond our control. So this is how the lands have evolved over the years, droughts, then rains, and evolution, new trees coming in. So that's the way. So Mother Nature has her own ways. Well, right now it's time for a commercial break. With that, we'd like to welcome Globenet Realty, our sponsors for this segment. And if you have
Globenet
a product
Realty,
that you'd like to bring on
Globenet
here,
Realty
welcome.
has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of Globenet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. Globenet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. Globenet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate is the world, being the longest established agency in the area. And don't forget that tomorrow we'll bring with Globenet Realty the real estate update for this week. So that's every Wednesday. It's on every Wednesday. So, well, right now it's time to go overseas. So with that, the first news from overseas is Cardinal Pell meets Pope. So, that is after a long time, probably an absence of about 3 years that he's gone to Rome. Let's join that news.
Sì, grazie. Questo è il mio segretario, padre Joseph Hamilton.
First a photograph just with the Holy Father. Then another one with the Pope on the other side of the Pope.
Thank you. Grazie. Grazie a lei, Santo Padre. Grazie a lei.
Grazie della testimonianza.
So after 3 years, Cardinal Pell is meeting the Pope there. Next news, we go to UK, where a new lockdown program has been introduced because of all the cases springing up there. Well, let's take a look at that news.
We are today simplifying, standardising and in some places toughening local rules in England by introducing 3 levels of COVID alert. Medium, with existing national measures such as the rule of 6 and the closure of hospitality at 10 p.m. High, with extra measures including a ban on indoor social mixing between households or support bubbles. And very high for places where without further action the NHS will swiftly be under intolerable pressure. The majority of the country will for now be at medium. Most areas currently under local intervention will be at high, and Nottinghamshire, including Nottingham itself, East and West Cheshire and a small area of High Peak, will also move to this level. Over the weekend, we've been working with local leaders in areas where the data are most worrying, and from Wednesday, local authorities in the Liverpool City region will move to the very high alert level.
So low, medium and high, the three categories of the lockdown. Well, right now, moving on, let's go to the next news, where EU is backing sanctions on Russians suspected of naval poisoning. So let's take a look at that news.
We have discussed possible elements of a strong EU common response to the use of prohibited chemical nerve agent, implement the proposals done by France and Germany about restrictive measures against those linked to this assassination attempt. It has been a political agreement to implement these restrictive measures that will be done by the technical bodies of the Council.
Ich bin sehr froh darüber, dass die Europäische Union große Geschlossenheit gezeigt hat und das, was wir mit Frankreich auf den Weg gebracht haben, nämlich die Sanktionierung von Einzelpersonen, die wir für mitverantwortlich halten.
So that news, and right now we go to US, where the next 2 news is from US. US Supreme Court nominee makes an opening pitch to the committee. So let's take a quick look at that news before we move on to the final news for today.
Courts have a vital responsibility to the rule of law, which is critical to a free society. But courts are not designed to solve every problem
US
or right
Supreme
every
Court
wrong
nominee.
in our public life. The policy decisions and value judgments of government must be made by the political branches, elected by and accountable to the people. The public should not expect courts to do so, and courts should not try. That is the approach that I have strived to follow as a judge on the Seventh Circuit. I believe Americans of all backgrounds deserve an independent Supreme Court that interprets our Constitution and laws as they are written.
So that's the pitch by the US Supreme Court nominee Well, right now, the final news from overseas for today is massive crowds gather in LA after Lakers win. So fans of Los Angeles Lakers spilled into the streets after the team captured their 17th NBA championship. Here's to that news.
If you've ever come to an emergency department, it's a very heightened place, it's very stressful, there's lots of sounds, lots of noises. It's obviously a place that can be really intimidating and really scary if you've never been here before.
Everything looks okay though, yeah?
My name is Chris Poropat, I'm an Associate Nurse Unit Manager.
And right now, it's time to go to all the functions and events that are taking place right here in Brisbane. And don't forget that a lot of these functions and events would be taking virtually, but of course we have lately seen that many functions have begun with limited number of people attending them in person as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been wonderful having your company. It's always good to see you. And today there was so much, news, of course, making news is of all premiers being in the highlight at this point in time. Time will tell how we progress through this. Of course, Queensland election, we are on the trail. So we'll bring to you all the latest updates that come our way. Well, for now, it's time to say goodbye. It's been wonderful having your company. It's always good to see you. And until tomorrow, don't forget that tomorrow we will have the real estate update with Globenet Realty. And of course, we are very soon going to introduce another segment where at this point in time, people are looking at the borders or maybe about how to get to other other countries in case of extreme need. How do you go about what needs to be done? So we will probably introduce a segment where we can look at that as well. But for now, it's goodbye from me until tomorrow. Be good, but most importantly, remain safe.